Todd, I showed up for work and not in uniform.
You weren't fully dressed, violation of the dress code. But welcome aboard, Jason. Glad you got the hat on.
Oh my gosh. Folks, happy Friday and welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. My name is Jason Robertson and I'm here with my partner in crime,
Todd Peterson. Thanks for joining us. And Jason, before we get started, a little plug for myself. Folks, I launched a brand new podcast. I am flying solo. They pushed me out of the bird's nest. You can find that over on Rumble at our new channel, The American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson. 2 shows in the books this week. We're there every Tuesday and Thursday. I would hope to see you there because we're not streaming on Facebook, Jason. It is a Rumble only, The American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson. There's my shameless plug to start the show.
I was going to say that we should probably start talking about a couple things at the American Tribune. So we started this crazy operation coming up on 2 years ago, fall 2 years ago. We launched our website, theamericantribune.com. Go there, check out your news. We write, a good dozen to 2 dozen stories a day where we try to bring out news stories that you might not have heard or things that you might not have seen. We try to have a lot of humor in it. We try to have fun with it. And that's our main website. Once we got that running, we branched into Substack, which is our website, theamericantribune.news. Will Tanner, who's one of our partners. By the way, Will Tanner, Todd, is he one of the smartest people you know?
Well, I don't want to, boy, this is going to sound mean against the friends that I do have, but Jason, yes, he is a very smart cookie.
Will is super smart, and he writes deeper, well-researched pieces. He talks a lot about history, structures of government. I mean, he wrote one a couple weeks ago where he was talking about how investment bankers have corrupted the medical system. I mean, some really deep dive pieces. And this week he launched his own podcast too. So that's kind of our vision for the future. Todd and I are going to do a weekly one. Todd's going to do a few episodes a week. Will's going to start doing some of the deeper dive pieces. And I just got to say before we get into it, like, we really appreciate all the people that tune in and watch. And I mean, it's kind of fun. We already got folks like Kagan Girl. We got Dee Dee that join us. We got a number of people that tune in a lot and have supported our work onto our website, sign up for subscriptions. We are 2 guys that left the corporate world, left to do this, to bring truth to the American people because it's sorely needed. And I'm so proud. I was watching Todd's podcast yesterday going, God, he's just killing it. It's fun. So thank you everybody for tuning into that. Todd, how was it to do your first?
It was awesome. I would love to talk about that. I do want to go back to Dee Dee's comment. Thanks for watching on Rumble, Dee Dee. Thanks for joining the show again this Friday with Jason and I here. So if you're watching on this Rumble channel, this is the American Tribune. This is kind of our landing page over on Rumble. So it's a brand new Rumble channel, just to clarify again. It's called the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson. Just a few extra words to search there. But look forward to having you next week, Dee Dee. Jason, the show was awesome. I went in on Tuesday for the live inaugural show, and I'm thinking, I told the audience, even, you go back and watch the clip, I'll be here for like 20 minutes. We got a few things to say, and I'm going to get out of here. Jason, I was there for a full hour talking about January 6th, Charlottesville. And then on Thursday, I go back in thinking, all right, let's try half an hour again this time. I was there for an hour and 15 minutes going through the entire Kamala interview on Fox. Like, there was just so much to talk about. I had a great time doing it, and hope to bring all these people from this show over there to build our audience as well. So I look forward to having you guys all over there again on Rumble only at the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson.
We should add on the comments too, Todd, all the different channels so people can find it. And just so folks know, we try to do it so it's a little easier. We'll put all that content will eventually land on this channel. But like we know with the big Rumble channel, I mean, we do 20 videos a day, so it gets kind of congested.
Yeah, I just wanted to clean up the clutter a little bit. You're going to my channel specifically for my podcast. Our other channel here, you can watch this podcast and you can watch all the other content that we put on there that gets back into the articles on the AmericanTribune.com as well.
Yeah, and DD asked too, do y'all all do anything on Telegram? We actually do have a Telegram channel that streams all of our content from our website, and then we try to pull in one piece from our other assets. And really our goal when we started the company is, how do we get out of corporate America? How are we not an advertiser-backed content, and we can get on here? And Todd and I, we're conservatives. We're not Republicans. We think the Republican Party is trash. Mitch McConnell is trash. We think, we think he's just as bad as Chuck Schumer. We love President Trump because President Trump brought truth to the American people. I mean, think about Republicans back in 2014. Like, they thought Mitt Romney was a great guy. They didn't realize he was just some vulture capitalist that was ruining the country.
We thought that was as good it was going to get. Like, okay, McCain and Romney, go up against Barack Obama and the Democrat machine, and then Donald Trump comes down that escalator and changes the entire landscape.
Right. And here's what's crazy too is your media outlets, even Fox, like, they're beholden to advertisers. Big Pharma, one of the biggest advertisers that you'll have. And for guys like us, like, we're supported by viewers. So when people subscribe to one of our platforms, you can even subscribe on Rumble now. When people visit our websites or whatnot, like that helps support what we do. So yeah, we really appreciate it. And it's super exciting to see all the things. We do need to talk to about platforms, because if you search the American Tribune, we're on about every platform. We're got multiple Facebook pages, Twitter. Todd's got our Twitter handles now under our name. We're on YouTube. The best places to follow us, though, where a lot of our content's going to go, is either directly on our website or it's going to go on Twitter and Rumble. The reason is, and like today's show, Todd and I were on here at 9:00. Okay, we got to go through this, we got to go through that, and we're like, I don't even know if I can play that on Facebook. It's the craziest thing ever. And to give a real world example, on Facebook, it's sad too, because Facebook, we get some of the best engagement and chatting on Facebook, because the other platforms aren't as good, but they suppress. So this week there were whistleblowers that came out that said, if basically from Meta, the story is, and these are all allegations, that if you post something that says Kamala Harris, you get like no views, they suppress it. And if you post something like about Trump, it gets suppressed. And I mean, we live that firsthand. So Todd, do you want to tell the Facebook video story that we found out a couple of weeks ago?
Well, I'll even say the name of the show this week, our headline, "What an Amazing Week in the Election Cycle." I was just going to be a little more transparent and clear about what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Kamala's interview on Fox News, that absolute disaster. And we're going to talk about Donald Trump's speech last night, the absolutely hilarious. He is so underappreciated as a comedian. He gave this amazing speech last night at the Al Smith dinner, and we can't talk about any of that. His jokes would get us nuked off of Facebook completely, because some of the things that he said, downright funny, downright true, but we can't say it on Facebook here. Yeah, and to your point about our videos, Jason, so if I post a video, well, let's go back in time a little bit, because our viewers don't appreciate this enough either. We used to do C-SPAN videos of Joe Biden. This is public access. This is what the government is producing in tandem with companies and cable television networks. Just Joe Biden walking down the sidewalk and stumbling a little bit or fumbling up his words. If we even just showed that video, didn't even editorialize it, just said Joe Biden falls down the stairs, Facebook would suppress that, because before his debate appearance in June with Donald Trump, that was misinformation that Joe Biden was senile and demented. Then he does the debate, and then suddenly we're allowed to talk about it. Donald Trump, if you put his name on any of our videos from C-SPAN, if you show a picture of him talking or a video of him talking, they will suppress that content so it doesn't get out to you. And Jason, we have 15 pages, like 1 million people on every page. We have a lot of Facebook followers. Most of them will never see content if it has Donald Trump's name on there, because Orange Man bad. And if we do anything anti-Kamala Harris, the same thing. They do not want people seeing what is actually going on. And that's why we're trying to make the switch over to Rumble and Twitter and these other platforms that don't suppress that content.
Well, and it's funny. So, two real world stories. So we started the business. We launched social media pages. That's how you get your word out, right? Everybody goes on these. We started a page. The first page was President Trump is my wingman. And it was a Trump focused page. We're big Trump supporters. And last year, Thanksgiving Day, as a matter of fact, we were getting ready. We do brunch at our house. And I look and I get a notification that your page was unpublished. And I'm like, we didn't say anything bad. We had 1 million followers on this page. And I look and they said, oh, you're impersonating President Trump. And I said, well, no, we're not impersonating President Trump. It says Trump is my wingman, which just means we're supporters of Trump. And like, it's labeled a fan page or whatnot. That page is still unpublished after nearly a year. So this Thanksgiving, it will be 12 months. 1 million follower Facebook page is still suppressed. It's been crazy. Oh, and shout out that we got Dolores from Houston, Rebecca. Giddy up.
Your name, Rebecca. I see like 3 different ethnicities, like Rebecca, Meshwitz, Jimenez. Like, I love you. There's the American right in front of our eyes right there.
That is the other thing Todd was talking about on one of our pages. We just run C-SPAN clips, and then based on your views, you can make a little bit of money on them or whatnot. And I went back and looked. Every Trump video in the last 90 days, we would make like $1. And like Todd would spend time editing and adding commentary, and we'd share it on Facebook. We could pick any other topic, and you'd make $20, $50, $100, whatever the number is. But every single Donald Trump video we made was less than $1. And it's like the suppression is real. You know, there's millions of people that are President Trump fans on Facebook, and they just suppress the heck out of it.
Boy, we weren't expecting to go there, Jason, but lots to talk about. Let me put a bookend in that one. We are trying to get away from relying on YouTube and Google and Facebook and all these big tech companies. If you go to theamericantribune.com, you're going to see that we have often sanitized our language. There are certain topics we never even broach or try to talk about simply because we have to play by Google's rules if we want to collect ad revenue on those sites. That's why when Jason referenced, we have Rumble, we have Substack, we have Telegram, and you can find all those under the banner of the American Tribune as well. But these are non-reliant sources for income from Google and other big tech companies. This is where you can support our work. You can subscribe on Substack, you can subscribe on Rumble, and help us get away from the corporate beast that is actively trying to prevent you from getting the real truth.
And like today, full disclosure, we tried to do an hour on all the platforms, then we switch over to Rumble only. But we're going to start talking about Kamala's horrible week, and then we have to go into the comedy and kind of our transition story is Jim Gaffigan last night. Like that dude was funny, and the Jim Gaffigan story arc is astounding. But we were talking, we're like, I don't know if we can run this on Facebook. Like, I don't know if we can run this on YouTube. They might frown on that. So we'll see how this flows. But Todd, where do we got to start this week?
You know, let's start at the beginning here. We talked about an amazing week in the election cycle, and it all started for me with Kamala Harris going on Fox News. And they're all saying it was a bullying interview. They were mean to her. Make no mistake. Kamala Harris went on Fox because her campaign, well, they can't hire her anymore. So the reason she's doing interviews at all is because when she was hiding, people didn't like that and she was losing votes. So then they decided, well, we got to get her out there because we're losing votes. And it turns out when you put Kamala Harris in front of the camera, even less people like her. Kamala Harris is throwing a Hail Mary at this point. She went on Fox News because she is trying to siphon off the Never Trump viewers of that network. That is it. She knew going in, she was going to get asked questions that Fox News viewers probably have about her. These were not gotcha questions. These are legitimate questions. Hat off to Brett Baer. He asked some fantastic questions, tried to hold Kamala accountable for answering them, never got an answer. And so they said, oh, he was mean, he interrupted, he was bullying. No, he was trying to redirect Kamala because she rambled the entire time. She should have been prepared for questions like this about, why haven't you done anything about the border? Do you support, I don't even know if we can say this in Facebook, Jason, maybe we'll skip that clip altogether. Some of the policies that she has endorsed in the past, do you support that today? Would give non-answers. People that watch Fox News maybe don't like Donald Trump and would consider voting for Kamala Harris. They still have concerns about what her policies are. So every single question was fair. It was fair game. She completely tanked it. Do you want to start with some clips on that, Jason, or do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, just to comment on that so first of all, I am personally very convinced President Trump is going to win. I think the polling numbers out there, I don't even know what to make of any of them, but I think if all the red-blooded Americans who want to save this country go out and vote, take their friends, take their family, take their neighbor with them to vote, Donald Trump is going to be president of the United States. But I think it's going to require everybody to vote. Folks, we need 100 million. We need it too big to rig. They're already pushing through many things to make this election interesting, shall we say, as we're on some of these platforms. But with that said, take anything you think out of like how the election's going and just look at the behavior of the campaigns. The Harris campaign, when they first anointed her and everything spiked and she was great, they had 3 debates lined up with Trump. They canceled those. She wasn't doing any interviews. She wasn't doing any of that because they really thought the American people were stupid and they thought that they could just install this retard. God dang it, Todd. Your wife's going to be so mad. We made it 15 minutes without saying retard. But they thought they could install her.
You're going after Officer Harris, you're either racist or sexist or ableist.
Right.
So they will use...
Ableist.
Yeah, because she's a retard. She's literally retarded. I mean... Right. If you're going,
Oh, I love that clip. But they thought they could just push her by. And now when she's got out there, they're like, no, the American people actually want to know who they're voting for. And oh no, like as they put her out there, she continues to look stupider and stupider. So she went on Fox because they're in panic mode. They're like, they've got to make up some pretty big numbers and they can't print that many ballots. But with that, allegedly.
Jason, I will say this too. You and I both live in Minnesota. We have a lot of viewers in California, other very blue states. Donald Trump might win Minnesota. He's coming back here. He thinks he might have a play. And if he doesn't have a play in Minnesota, he's at least trying to help down ballot votes here. We don't live in a country, and I hope we never do, where it's just the popular vote, where the most votes wins. We never want to get to that point. I love the Electoral College. There is still something to be said about a popular mandate, though. Don't be discouraged if you live in Minnesota, if you live in California, if you live in Oregon. Your vote matters too, because if Donald Trump can win the popular vote, you're going to see a huge shift in the narrative as well, because all these Dems are out there saying, oh, the Electoral College is a system of old white men in the founding nation 250 years ago. Got to get rid of it because we're in a modern society now. Give Donald Trump the popular mandate and shut them up once and for all about that. Donald Trump will win the Electoral College. Let's give him the popular vote as well so that we can stop talking about how Dems win every election. Californians, Minnesotans, New Yorkers, Oregonians, everyone needs to go out and vote and drag their friends and their neighbors and their family members to the polls as well.
And that's an excellent point. The state with the single number largest of Republican voters registered is California. I don't think President Trump will win California. I think that would be a stretch. I would be pretty surprised if he did. But even with that belief, every single Republican in California, go to the polls, bring your friends, bring your family, bring your neighbor. If somebody says, well, my vote won't count anyways, Democrats win, slap them upside the head and go get out there and vote. Because can you imagine a world if President Trump wins the Electoral College and the popular vote? Like how much that's going to shut down the narrative. Absolutely. And that's going to give, and that narrative isn't just for the media or the Democrats, that's for the Republicans. Because the Republican establishment, they were the ones that opposed President Trump's mandate his first term. Those first 2 years, he had the House and Senate. The reason the wall wasn't built were slime balls like Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell and all those awful Republicans. They need to know the majority of Americans support President Trump.
Yeah. The last time Donald Trump won the presidency, he entered with John Boehner and Paul Ryan as his speakers. We have come so far from 8 years ago. Like Jason said, give them the mandate and shut down not just the Democrats, but the rhinos as well. Great point, Jason.
We get all fired up. Should we start with the Brett Baer clip?
Let's do some Brett Baer. I think I got two. This one is simply hilarious because Kamala Harris, this is what Democrats do. They always say things and assert it as true, even though it's like, well, where's your evidence? How are you coming to that conclusion? They just say it and they just assume you're going to accept it as well. And Brett Baer is having none of it.
Exhausted of Brett.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
you
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade,
but
people
you're the
have
lever
become.
Of power.
But listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, frankly.
That clip is so bad. That summarizes the entire, and let's emphasize this, 27-minute interview. That's all she lasted before her handlers are going over there. Brett, you got to shut this down. That whole response is what happened here. She got asked a legitimate question that Fox viewers want to know the answer to because, oh, I don't like Trump because he doesn't make me feel good. Maybe I'll vote for Kamala Harris. Okay, well, persuade them. And that is her attempt at persuasion. Donald Trump's been campaigning for a long time. That's my answer.
Sometimes Democrats make these points that anybody with any semblance of logic, like these dots do not connect. And let's put this in perspective. Kamala went on this network to find Trump-hating Republicans that she could get to vote for. And they're sitting there going, okay, the Middle East is like any minute from now, they're going to blow up. You got the war in Ukraine, which, by the way, Zelensky's trying to get pushed into NATO this week. You've got groceries cost 30% more than they did a couple years ago. You've got, student loan bailouts. You've got illegal immigrants everywhere. And so Brett Baier gave her a legitimate opportunity. Like, how's this going to be different? Like, because these Republicans you want to win, that you think you might have a chance to persuade, they've seen what you've done, and it's that bad. They're going to plug their nose and vote for Trump if they don't like Trump. And all she says, and think of this logic, the country sucks because Donald Trump's been running for president for 10 years. Does that make any sense at all?
Kamala Harris ran in 2020, so what's her count at? 5 years? Like, what's the number when it's ridiculous? So Donald Trump, 10 years, bad. Kamala Harris running for president, 5 years, good. So that doesn't, like, even if you apply their own logic, it doesn't make sense. But Kamala Harris is asked, you are campaigning on day one, a new way forward. We're going to do things differently. And so he says, you're part of the Biden administration. Why haven't you done it already? And what is going to be different the next time around? Donald Trump. Donald Trump's running.
Yeah, I saw that clip on your show yesterday where it was like where it was 22 times where she said Donald Trump in the Brett Baier interview.
Democrats voted.
Donald Trump, 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 and Donald Trump, Donald Trump.
President Biden had a fundraiser debate stage.
Let's go back to Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald.
Brutal. So if you wanted to see the other part of how the interview went, it's that. Number one, it's not answering the question. Number two, it is simply invoking the name of the former president. That is it. That is her entire platform.
Right. And I got to say, Dee nailed it too. I think it's telling they have to point out where Trump came down the escalator. That was the beginning of the big reveal of what was going on for decades. I don't think people understand this well enough. And I mean, a lot of our audience will, or people that consume our content, but in pre-2014 or 15, you thought there was a Republican Party and a Democrat Party, and you thought they were really up there fighting for you. And you really kind of believed the news, and you believe that. Trump comes down the escalator, and all of a sudden you go, wait a second. It turns out Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer are buddies. And it doesn't really matter which one's in charge. They're both going to screw you over. They get paid by different people, but they're just not going to look out for you. Trump exposed that, and these guys don't know what to do. That's why when she's bragging about all these people that support her, yeah, those are the awful elitist Republicans that we want nothing to do with. Those of us in the MAGA coalition, like, you can have Mike Pence. You can have Dick Cheney. You can have Bush for all I care. Like, they are not doing anything for the American people.
Jason, Jan, welcome aboard and welcome on Twitter. Here we go. Trump would have folded like a $3 suit in a similar interview. He made it through, 4 to 5 questions before he copped out and danced for 40 minutes? LMAO. So, Jan, we speak to a largely conservative audience. That is who follows our platforms. I am so glad you're watching the show with us today, because this is information that, while we speak to a conservative audience, we hope that it reaches across the aisle and eventually ends up on your screen. So I'm so glad it has this morning. I simply don't know how to respond to this sometimes, other than, what in the world are you talking about? Have you not seen Donald Trump every single day go on network television, go on podcasts, give speeches, show up at the Association for Black Journalists where Kamala Harris didn't go, show up to the dinner last night where Kamala Harris didn't go? He has done tough interviews. If you go back to 2020, and I know it's asking a lot, Jan, for you to think back 4 years ago, he would go on CBS and ABC, and all they did was present lies and hoaxes to him, and the entire time he's trying to debunk them. I remember in the debate with Kamala Harris and David Muir that Donald Trump couldn't say a single thing without getting fact-checked the entire night. I don't know how many more examples Jan needs, but Donald Trump has been in this situation, and he handles it just fine.
Yeah, and actually, Jan, I'm going to invite you to stick around, and we appreciate you in here, because we're going to take you on the Jim Gaffigan journey, because the Jim Gaffigan story we're going to cover here in about 10, 15 minutes is going to really speak to people like you. And when I say people like you, it's people that have been brainwashed by the establishment, by the corporate media. And we pray for you, Jan.
And
of course, you notice these things. MAGA brainwashing is incredibly thorough. The recent town hall he did, the man is halfway to a vegetable. I'm going to talk about this for a second, too. So what Jan's saying, and Jan's brainwashed, she thinks we're brainwashed, which is the scary thing. Donald Trump was at a rally. 2 people had medical emergencies in the crowd. So Donald Trump stopped speaking, remained on stage. They played music. He was trying to engage with the crowd a little bit while they attended to the rally goers, because they had 2 people that they had to bring in the EMT kits to. And it was about 30 minutes while they came out. They gave him medical care and all that sort of thing. The mainstream media clipped that and said, look, Donald Trump stood there on stage looking confused for 35 minutes. Jan believed that. Jan saw that. She saw it on Occupy Democrats and on MSNBC, and she saw Joy Reid talking about it. She saw Kamala tweet about that. And then she has the audacity to come here and call us brainwashed. And it's like, oh my gosh.
And Jan, where do you get your news from? The question is always, do you watch CNN? Do you watch MSNBC? And then your Biden 2.0, who I also can't stand, did you vote for Joe Biden in 2020? And Jason, this is our homework assignment for all the Jans out there. Start at Charlottesville. Jan, thanks for your comments, Jan. Thanks for sticking with us this long. Jan, can you let us know in the comments, did Donald Trump call neo-Nazis and white supremacists fine people?
Oh, and she realizes, well, we should go on with the rest of the show.
That question there. Did he call them fine people? Let's start at that, because once you unravel all the lies about Donald Trump, it's impossible to stop.
Right. Oh, and Dee coming in hot. I used to live with the Jan. I red pill Jan for 2 years. Oh, Jan just voted for Trump.
American patriot, a hero.
Hero. Dustin Lerp, welcome to the show. Trump 2024. Giddy up.
All right. One more thing with Jan. Jan, love the comments. Thanks for the engagement. I get it exclusively from Fox, Daily Wire, and Facebook like you guys. So thanks for tuning in. Here is the thing about Donald Trump. Jason and I are voting for Donald Trump because of what he is representing in the movement right now. But at its core, we don't support Donald Trump because he's Trump. First and foremost, we wanted to go for truth and transparency in the government and limited government, and Donald Trump's the one that offers that. So our values brought us to Trump. It wasn't Trump that brought us to Trump. I don't know if that difference is understandable for Jans out there, but we are not blind Trump supporters.
We've gone this far with Jan. Do we have the fine people clip?
I was digging around for that right now.
Oh, I think I've got it. Jan, stick around. We'll find.
Jan did say fine people. Jan, buckle up for this one, Jan. We are about to rock your world and change your entire worldview.
Yeah, hold on. Stick with us, Jan. You got it, Todd?
Yeah, we are finding this right now.
We're going to find out if Jan actually has a functioning brain. I really hope so, Jan. We like smart people to watch our show.
Buckle up. Video incoming in 10 seconds. I love this moment so much. I love that Jan is willing to comment with us and engage in the program. We got to watch an ad before we download the video, apparently. This is
while we're going through that, we're going to jump in on just a few other comments here. Owen Henderson, what Trump has exposed is a failure of our government. All departments are a failure. Just look at the level at the level of idiots. 100% true. What the federal government is not your friends. They are not making life better for you.
Uh-oh, Jan. I hope this is okay. This isn't Todd and Jason saying it. This was Snopes that fact-checked the fine people comment. Turns out, no, he did not say that.
And that was done in 2024, and Snopes is a left-wing organization. How wild is that?
All right, we had to get through quite the ad to download this video, but Jan,
this is for you, Jan.
Oh, this video.
You had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people.
Oh, edit, stop the tape right there. He called them fine people. That's what Jan has seen before. But Jan, I got 30 more seconds for you.
Both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis or the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had
condemned totally. I'm not talking about them. Jan has never seen this video before.
And now she's going to justify that. No. And the whole argument in Charlottesville was they were taking down Confederate statues, which I believe should not be done. I think that it's important for our country to understand the history. How we were one of the few countries in the world that reconciled after a civil war and didn't completely disintegrate. And we did that by showing respect to the Confederates.
Oh, no, we hurt Jan's feelings, Jason. She saw
we showed her that
Jan, you just
wrong.
saw him too. I'm not talking about them. He totally condemns them.
Right.
We are so close to getting Jan to wake up and see the truth. All right, Jan, we're moving on. Thanks for entertaining us for a little bit. Thanks for tuning in. But if you can't, folks, if you know people that will watch this clip and they refuse to change their mind or are unwilling to accept the truth and reflect on what they thought was true, we did it. We did our best, Jan.
We tried, Todd. And I often say part of why we do this content, we love talking to our own audience, and our audience, it tends to lean conservative, but they're just people that are sick of being lied to. Like, I would say everybody that tunes into a podcast.
Triggered Jan. Trump's gonna
win. Jan.
Oh, Jan. All right, we're moving on.
But I would say the reason why we create our content, we do what we do. I hate the government lying to me. I think the government lies to me. First Friday of every month, I break down the jobs report. I used to be a chief operating officer, so reading reports like that. And frankly, these are simple, and they lie to you about what's in that report. And the report's right there, just nobody takes the time to read it. Todd does this with media. Will talks about with history. And at some point, we need people like Jan to get sick of being lied to. We just showed Jan the biggest lie, the tentpole lie. Donald Trump explicitly condemned the neo-Nazis. There is no ands, ifs, or buts about it, but brainwashed people like Jan have the audacity to come out and call us brainwashed because they've seen the fine people. And if you can't see the video and it doesn't make you reflect like, well, he did flat out condemn them, you have no hope for them. Move on. I mean, thank God Dee converted one, but like how much, it's so tough.
The incident.
Jason, you talked about how the government lies to us all the time. This clip right here, I think this was from earlier in the week as well. Martha Raddatz, mainstream media, cable media, corporate media, she wants you as the American citizen to think that it is not a big deal that we have entire apartment buildings taken over by illegal criminal gangs. Honestly, I couldn't believe this was real. I assumed this was AI, this was parody. This is actually how they feel about you. And for all the Jans out there, I hate to reference. Now we have a proxy for everyone.
We're going to have to call him a Jan.
You're a Jan now. Yeah,
you're a Jan now. Instead of a Karen, a Jan is just a brainwashed liberal woman. I bet she owns 5 cats.
Right here and not get so pissed off at the media complex. And again, the media lied to you about fine people. And listen to this. This is how little they think about you.
We're limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border? Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to be. And I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting because you seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs. I worry so much more about that problem than anything else here. We've got to get American communities in a safe space again.
I gotta say, this story is the greatest ever because if you remember back at the debate, like they were talking about Haitians eating dogs, and we did a whole episode on that. You can go back a few weeks ago. And then they talked about how they were emptying Venezuelan gang members. They were emptying their jails and sending them to America. That was a lie. And then, according to the media, and then they said they were taking over apartment buildings. They're saying that was a lie. I do the Wayne Dupree podcast during the week. Wayne even didn't believe that gangs were really taking over apartment
Color
buildings.
me shocked, Jason.
What's that?
Color me shocked.
Right. And I'm like, no, seriously, this is happening. Like I see, the mayor's talking about it and whatnot. So now we've gone from it isn't happening to it's happening, but it's not a big deal. We have illegal Venezuelans that were gang members kicked out of Venezuela that came into this country illegally that are now running. And when people say Venezuelan gangs took over apartment buildings, think of like the mob back in the 50s and 60s in New York. That's what we mean they took over. That means they control what happens. You pay them protection money. It's not like it's an encampment where they built the fence around it. It's just the comings and goings of that apartment building are decided by the Venezuelan gangs. And Martha McCallum on ABC admits it's happening now. So, the cycle goes, it's not happening. It's happening, but it's not a big deal. The next step will be it's happening and it's a good thing.
The elites don't care about you. Great comment from Barbara. Thanks for tuning in. Jans, Karens, all idiots that should be living with the illegals in those apartment complexes. Yes, Martha can go live with them. Fally says the same thing. Thanks for joining us again, Fally. Martha will send them to your house. Do you remember, again, this is a few years ago. Our memories are short when it comes to politics. Ron DeSantis sent just under 50 illegals to Martha's Vineyard. Those people lasted less than 2 days. 2 days. It was a problem when they were simply living in the community, but now, according to ABC, it is not a problem that entire apartment complexes have been taken over. You, because you're just in Aurora, Colorado, have to deal with it. You're not a millionaire living in Martha's Vineyard where we will ship them out again. It is unreal, and I was doing so good staying level-headed. But sometimes you interact with these Jans out there, and you just think, what is wrong with you? How do you not get this?
Well, yeah, and I love JD Van's face where he's like, you're saying it's not a big deal? Like people that shouldn't even be in the country in the first place have taken over apartment complexes? I mean, oh my gosh. Hey, I got to give a shout out to one of the original viewers, Fally. But Fally screwed up and was on Facebook watching. And so Fally got hit. Now Fally's over on Rumble. So this is real world why we encourage people to be on Rumble. Is Fally goes onto Facebook, makes a comment. Facebook says, oopsie daisy. I do got to swing back too. We talked about Charlottesville a little bit, and Frank, I thought, made a really nice point. Charlottesville, Virginia was a march for our history and our heritage, regardless of their race, gender, religion. Confederate soldiers, native tribes, Creoles, Black, Texans, Mexicans, Irish, Cubans, Camels, Brigades, whites of many different nationalities and Asian who all fought for the Confederacy over states' rights and taxation tariffs imposed by the northern states against the southern states is a real reason for the war between the states. So Frank brings out a great point. Like everybody likes to talk about the Civil War and it was all about slavery. It was really about form of government, states' rights, that sort of thing. But whatever you think about it, like that happened in America. And we reconciled the North and South by allowing the South to have its dignity and still appreciate their leaders. And tearing those statues down is it's like tearing down Columbus Day. I mean, it was ridiculous. And Will Tanner, shout out to him. Will on Twitter did a great thread talking about what the explorers like Columbus encountered when they first got to America. Like they make it sound like the Indians were a bunch of like pipe smoking hippies, and the Indians were killing each other, trading land back and forth. The white people, the colonists, just showed up. They were just better, and they took over the land. I mean, that's how it works.
If I heard you correctly, Jason, you said that pre-European contact, they were still fighting over land and resources and mutilating one another. And the Europeans came and took over land, but didn't mutilate, but they're the bad guys.
Well, yeah, I mean, so if you get two Indian tribes fighting over land and one takes it, it's their land now, the other takes it, it's their land now, like that's cool. But then the white guy shows up and takes the land, suddenly they're the bad guy. It's like...
And stops the human sacrifice. Okay.
Right. Oh my God, don't get me talked about the
All
Aztecs.
right, let's get back to Fox News and Kamala, because we only saw one clip so far. Here is another important question. If you're considering voting for Kamala Harris, how can you trust her? She lied to you for 3.5 years about Joe Biden's health, And so again, she goes on Fox. She's trying to court Fox viewers and persuade them to her camp, or at least she should be trying to persuade them instead of saying Trump, 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 Trump. So she gets asked this question about Joe Biden's cognitive decline, and well, you can guess how this goes.
Call Donald Trump. He's misguided. You say now
he's unstable. He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room. And he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett?
Okay, so there is her non-answer. And here comes the mean bully Brett Baer to say, I'm going to rein you in, Kamala. Let me try asking that question again. But, ooh, that's mean when you do that to a Democrat.
Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security.
I'm not going to take my hat off because it might get too blinding in here, but I want to take a partisan hat off metaphorically at the moment. I am not saying this as a Trump voter. I will cast my ballot in person on Election Day, the only time that you should be able to vote in this country, by the way. Just as someone watching this clip, I hear a question, a legitimate question, because we know that we got lied to about Joe Biden's health. I see a response that goes from Trump bad to Joe Biden is just fine, and the American people do have concerns, but it's not about the lies that I told you. It's about Trump being president. There is nothing in this response that is coherent, that makes sense. What am I missing, Jason?
Well, I was going to say, so here's the elephant in the room. We all saw Joe Biden probably wasn't mentally fit, and people age differently. Like, I see people in their 80s and 90s that are sharp as a tack, and I see people that are in their 80s and 90s that don't even know what's going on. I lived through my father-in-law over the course of 6 years, going from, he was able to drive himself from Florida to Minnesota by himself and completely fine, normal. 5 years later, he was in the memory care unit, didn't know my wife's name. I mean, everybody ages differently. One of the first episodes we did, I think it was like last December, we were talking about Joe Biden's mental decline. We were showing videos. We were getting strikes on social media. Oh, Joe Biden's fine. The media was saying Joe Biden was fine. Folks, this is one of the biggest travesties that's been carried out against the American people for decades. We have had a president who's not there, who should not be commander-in-chief. Even right now, Joe Biden shouldn't be commander-in-chief, like with everything going on in the world. And it exposes that the president really doesn't matter. He's being run by all these puppeteers and all the people that are pulling the strings. But Kamala needs to answer this question. Kamala needs to say, because she was telling us he was fine. I'm in meetings and he's as sharp as a tack. And, oh, it's never been a sharper version of Joe Biden. And I mean, people like Jan, like, you called folks like us crazy and brainwashed. And now it's been proven that, yeah, Joe Biden's bad. They won't even admit that they lied to you. They won't admit that they said anything. It is remarkable. This was one of the most damning parts of the thing. And then when Brett Baer's like, whoa. No. Joe Biden wasn't all there. And it's clear that's why you replaced him. And now she wants to say, well, Trump. It's embarrassing. And people that buy this, I just feel so sorry for them.
Yeah, and what's also embarrassing is I was looking for the comments to see if Jan actually said it. I assume she believes it. Everyone's just like, I can't vote for a vegetable. Donald Trump's too old. Nobody had these concerns before the June debate when Joe Biden exposed himself and we were allowed to say what we all recognized. No one cared that Joe Biden was senile. This is just a fake attack on Donald Trump. Oh, I'm worried about his age. Oh, look at, he's a vegetable. I'm sorry. Did you see his hilarious speech last night? Have you seen him just go off the cuff and on these podcasts He doesn't have a teleprompter in front of him. He doesn't have notes. This guy can talk for 2 hours, not a problem at all. But they're going to pretend he's too old for this. Meanwhile, they voted for Joe Biden, who was too old for this and had clear issues. That was fine. Everything they say about Donald Trump, they are trying to make excuses to justify their brainwashed reason for not liking him in the first place. It never makes sense when you start to scrutinize their reasons for not liking him.
Well, and an important point to make here, too, about this with Jan. If Joe Biden was on the ballot still, if they wouldn't have run the coup, Jan's still voting for Joe Biden.
100%.
And it's clear Joe Biden ain't there. I mean, like, yeah, you can't make that the argument that Joe Biden is cognitively all there. You know, he has many issues.
Let's also do another hypothetical counterfactual what if. What if in 2020 it was Donald Trump in the White House for 4 years up until now? Would the media have run cover for his mental decline? Or do you think that they had a partisan agenda? They hid Joe Biden. They would not have hidden Donald Trump. That tells you all you need to know about what the media does. And Jason, I wasn't planning on showing this clip either, and I'm just going to share my screen to play it. You have people in the media basically admitting it's the media's job to run Kamala's campaign and make her look good. That is the definition of propaganda and brainwashing. But let's take a listen to Sunny Hostin on The View. If we can do a little screen share here.
Look at Todd go.
I think that Kamala Harris has been running a flawless campaign, and that's raised billions of dollars, $1 billion. I think it's because of the momentum that she has. I think it's because people believe in her, and I think people are showing that by the amount of money that they're willing to give to the campaign. I think we have the press to blame for a lot of this. About, you know, Whoopi, you always say you don't believe in polls. I'm with you now, because I'm reading the press. First it was Kamala's not doing enough press. Then she goes on this huge press tour. She was here with us. I thought she was fantastic. She was energetic. The crowd went wild. It was electric. CNN, Democrats grow anxious. Axios, blue wall blues. Fox, Dems are scared to death. No, Dems are not scared to death. Dems are pumped. What I would like the press to talk a little bit more about is Trump is in hiding. He didn't do the 60 Minutes interview. He does not want to do another debate. He's in mental decline. Obama's speech was captivating in Pittsburgh, yet instead of talking about that, we're talking about what he said before the speech to Black men. I think that the media has to do a much better job than what they're doing.
So, translation, you're not allowed to report the truth. You can't say what the polls are looking at. You can't talk about the betting markets for Trump right now. You can't look at projections. You can't look at what the candidates are doing and saying, Kamala Harris was so desperate she went on Fox News. No. We should only report positive news for Harris.
Here's what really blows me away, too. You can think Trump is all the things that they say he is. You can think that Trump is the worst thing ever. You can think that Trump, like, God love that. God love you if that's what you think. But I don't know how you can think Kamala Harris is competent and could reasonably be president. I mean,
be honest about that. Just admit she's a moron. She's a communist. And I just don't like Donald Trump, so I'm going to vote to ruin this country. Just be honest with us.
Right. That's what I mean. I had this conversation with my buddy Jim, who he's a Democrat. I'm a conservative. And when I told him, we've been talking for a while that they're going to switch Biden out for Harris, and he told me I was crazy and rah. Meanwhile, like, he looks at price of groceries and and he's like, this country's going bad. He's worried about war. I'm like, well, you elected the vegetables, so have a nice day. And we all agreed. It was funny because there was like a 3-week span where we have lunch every other week. We're having lunch this Saturday, so I'll have more to report. And it's like, yeah, Kamala's terrible. I can see if they swap her out. They could never put her in. She's such a big idiot. 2 weeks later, after they switch him out, we had lunch, and he's like, Kamala Harris isn't so bad. Turns out she's pretty good. And I'm like, dude, like, you could even tell me I think Trump is that bad. I'm going to vote for I didn't say it, Todd. I didn't say the R word.
I almost had to go back to the clip, Jason.
Yeah, you almost had to go back to the clip. But I'm going to vote for the idiotic Indian who can't complete a sentence and slept with Willie Brown. I'm going to do that because that's how bad I think Trump is. But don't try to convince me that you think Kamala's good. Like, don't even.
Man. Well, speaking of how good she is, we have more clips from her Fox interview. Let's see. She kind of got a little upset at one point. This was interesting.
Talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the president of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it.
Peter Navarre.
Argument when you start screaming.
Peter Navarre, everybody in January 6th, Steve Bannon.
People that are praying outside of clinics. He going after Donald Trump for 91 indictments and 34 felonies, or sure. This is another one of those talking points. They do not see what is right in front of their face, that this is happening. Maybe you like it, but just be honest with us. Just say, look, the Biden administration and their DOJ has gone after Trump people. Just say that. Look, it's happening, and I'm afraid of Donald Trump doing that to my side. Just be honest with us. But they ignore all of that, and then they just go on this boogeyman tour of like, he's going to do this. Jason,
what?
Well, I'm going to save my other comments for Rumble. Go ahead.
I was going to say what you said there was so eloquent and well said. Like, I just get on here and scream and rant. Todd says like really smart things, but yeah, just be honest. Like, you're targeting conservatives. You're going after the California or the Colorado baker. If people protest in front of an abortion clinic, you're going to lock them up. If you're running a conservative 501c3 nonprofit, you're going to get audited extra. You know, if you protest pro-Trump, you're going to get locked up. Like, these are just things that are going to happen. Like, don't. But and maybe the politician can't say it, but folks like Jan just needs to come out and say it. Yeah, like that's what happens. Like, that's the price of, I mean, how many lawyers that tried to dispute the election, like, lost their licenses? Like, you want to go work for Trump? Yeah, they're going to come after your law license. Like, that's just going to happen.
Yeah, never mind if you're a lawmaker in Congress and you dispute the 2000 or 2004 or 2016 election. That's okay. And that happened. They all did that. They went to the House floor and they contested the electoral votes from certain states.
Ugh.
You can do that as a Democrat. But if you're a lawyer for Trump's team, going through the legal process, doing everything correctly, you can still get disbarred.
Right. Todd, I feel like we might need a palate cleanse, go something a little more positive. Do we go on the Jim Gaffigan journey?
Let's do Jim Gaffigan on Facebook, and then we're going to make the switch over to Rumble because we still have to talk about, folks, we have the entire speech is on my Twitter. I cut it down for like 24 minutes to skip out the intro. The entire speech is worth watching, but we have so many hilarious moments from Donald Trump that we simply cannot put on Facebook.
Well, yeah, and where was that speech at? You want to kind of frame that up for everybody?
Let's save it for Rumble here. Let's get our Facebook audience going on Jim Gaffigan. What do you think?
All right. So Jim Gaffigan, famous comedian, does some Saturday Night Live. He had full Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, he was one of the whack jobs. He like, take Mark Ruffalo, Stephen King, now Dave Bautista. He was full on crazy. And after the 2020 election, he went on this epic Twitter rant. I think that's what you're gonna start showing, or at least the article coverage.
Yeah, let me share the article. We can scroll through that.
Susan Gibbs says she can't find us on Rumble.
The American Tribune is where we're streaming right now. Our channel is called the American Tribune on Rumble, Susan.
Oh, and then if you're on there too, if you find the channel, look on the live tab. That's where it goes.
And be sure to hit that follow button. Then you get notified every week when we go live.
Maybe I'll just drop the Rumble channel link. Do you think we'll get in trouble for that, Todd?
Well, remember what happened with Substack?
Oh yeah, they really didn't like it. So if you go on Rumble, the search bar, the American Tribune. And it'll be the first one. It has our little white logo thing.
We got Tiberius Gracchus in there. That's our inspiration for the logo.
Yeah. And I will say, so true story. While we find this and get this lined up, is we shared our Substack link on Facebook pages. so that people could go read. People were interested. Like, we'll write some really interesting pieces. And Facebook, like, nuked the page. Said, oh, you can't share that link here. Anyways.
It fits in with what we said earlier about getting censored. So why wouldn't they do that too? But here you go, Jason. We got Jim Gaffigan up for you.
All right, so Jim Gaffigan, this is in August 2020. Look, Trumpers, I get it. As a kid, I was a Cubs fan, and I know you stick by your team no matter what. But he's a traitor and a con man and doesn't care about you. Deep down, you know it. I'm sure you enjoy pissing people off, but you know Trump is a liar and a criminal.
Ooh. I just want to say, I know we can't comment on every tweet. Isn't it astounding, though, that they always say he doesn't care about you? Maybe not. I think Donald Trump on the big picture cares about making this country better. Just because of doing that, our lives will get better. These people honestly think Kamala Harris cares about them. That's the difference. Jim Gaffigan, when he says Trump doesn't care about you, what he's actually saying is, I trust Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to do right by me because they have my best interests in heart. They actually think that about these politicians.
Right.
Incredible.
And Jim Gaffigan, like, just using him as an example, Jim Gaffigan was Jan. Jim Gaffigan back in 2020. Do you have some more tweets from his thread?
Going.
Oh, yeah. By the way, you can't be against cancel culture and tell people stay out of politics. You know the time you did a job and didn't get paid. That's Trump, and you know it. Oh, my God. He just keeps going on. If those of you who think I'm destroying my career, wake up. If Trump gets elected, the economy will never come back. Just an utterly
This was all, if you look at the timestamps here, it's all around 11 o'clock at night. This dude is just going to town on Twitter, one after the other.
Right. Yeah, and then he's talking about, like, Lou Holtz came out supporting Trump. But building up dictators is radical. Trump having interference in the Justice Department is radical. Trump pandering to police and army, I gave 3 is radical. Trump is so radical. Jim Gaffigan, deep in the well, Todd.
I mean, this guy was just, people's brains were literally melted. Jan apparently hasn't recovered. But what's interesting, the reason we're talking about Jim Gaffigan, he hosted the Al Smith dinner last night. He emceed it, told some jokes up front. And full disclosure, I grew up loving Jim Gaffigan. And I know the Hot Pocket lines and some of the other stuff. He was always a clean comedian, told jokes about his family, made fun of himself for being just a white vanilla guy before all this woke nonsense took over. Like, we can laugh about this stuff. He did it in a way that was funny, family friendly. I really like the guy. And then Donald Trump just ruined him. But fast forward, are we going to go to the Rogan clip, Jason?
We're going to start with just a Rogan clip. Then we probably got to transition to Rumble only. So then this is 2020. And then a year or two later, he was on Joe Rogan's podcast. And this is the power of change that these podcasts can have. Like, I hope when we showed Jan the Fine People hoax clip where he said not white supremacists, I condemn them fully. I hope Jan is sitting there and, like, an hour or two later goes, wait a second, they really did lie. He specifically said not the white supremacists. Those people are condemned. And I hope that makes this little switch go off. Joe Rogan went on Jim Gaffigan like a year or so after the January 6th stuff. And they had a 3-hour podcast. And they were talking about ways the government lied to you about the pandemic, being careful to say it, and different things. But this was one of the best exchanges. And it was like a 10-minute exchange. The full clip's available. But for this purpose, we'll just talk about, like, show you a 2-minute part of it.
The other thing I want to say, Jason, too, I meant to make this point earlier about the fine people comment, and I know we're belaboring this to the point, but this is such an easy one to debunk. That's why, Jason, I did this on my initial podcast when I went solo. We're talking about it now because Jan came in. This is the foundation of all the hoaxes. If you can get them to accept that they got lied to about that, you're hoping to open the door for others. Snopes didn't just magically, like, find truth in his comments or realize that he didn't call those folks fine people. They sat on it for 7 years until they couldn't do it any longer. The people that are running the media and these politicians, they know what Donald Trump said. They know what's true and not, but then they convince the Jans of the world a false truth. Snopes could have set out immediately, he didn't call them fine people, end of discussion. But the editors over there, they're talking to their politician buddies, their media higher ups, they're saying, let's not debunk this because this is really good for our side. So they finally came out 7 years later. Joe Biden launched his campaign on it. Biden and Harris both mentioned Charlottesville in the debates, even though Snopes had fact-checked it, and now Jan still believes it because it's the regular folks that are believing the lies. And just understand that the media and the politician higher-ups, they know that they're lying to you. I don't know what else to say. All right, let's go to Rogan.
Yeah, this has been an interesting...
No, that's not the right clip.
Oh, no. That was Jim Gaffigan last night.
I think it's a standard tactic, especially when someone is the enemy of the intelligence agencies. With Trump, that's absolutely the case. Trump set himself up against the intelligence agencies. He did it openly and he did it brazenly. And a lot of people think it's very dangerous. Like, the intelligence agencies are very important. You know, you want to find out what's going on in other countries. You want to find out what the threats to America are. You want to find out what terrorist activities are going to be taking place and stop them before.
And, you know, JFK had his problem with the intelligence agencies.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, it's unchecked power, right? That's the deep state. It's unchecked power. And I think Trump was very open about his disdain for the intelligence agencies. He created enemies in the intelligence agencies. It's standard for intelligence agencies in this country to encourage agent provocateurs or to employ agent provocateurs.
And so you're saying when he was in Helsinki and he was saying, I believe Putin more than my intelligence community, that was something the intelligence community was like, we're going to get him.
Well, I think they were going to get him in any way that they could because he's an enemy of the intelligence agencies. And he was openly talking about them being incompetent and being corrupt. And he fired Comey and, he was against the FBI. And, look, it's a very dangerous thing. You talk to people that are in intelligence agencies. Like, it's a very dangerous thing for a president to be at war with the intelligence agencies and to do it so publicly. And I think it's without a doubt, when you have a gigantic, massive protest that a lot of people think is a threat to democracy, you have these people that are saying the election was rigged and they're on the Capitol lawn, they're screaming and yelling. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that they would encourage people to do things that were unlawful. Instead of peacefully protesting, which is what everybody was doing on the outside, which is totally legal, to take that and escalate it to entering into the Capitol. Now you can lock things down, and now you have real clear evidence that this president is responsible for this insurrection attempt, and this is dangerous. This is a threat to our democracy, and he's never going to be president again. We're going to indict him. We're going to go after him. We're going to do all these different things. I think it's not like there's a lot of shenanigans going on both sides. It's not like a clear cut, like he shouldn't have done that and they should have done this. It's like there's a lot of fuckery and there's a lot that's been going on throughout history. Whenever people have unchecked power and unchecked influence and they have enemies.
Yeah, we can't play the entire clip, but Gaffigan, I mean, he doesn't push back against Rogan and what we saw there, but prior to that little monologue afterwards, he's kind of not like, ooh, but Trump. He's open and receptive to this new information.
This is where we need to get all Democrats to. This is part of why we like to use the line, share this content with people you might not politically agree with. Dee Dee talked about earlier how she woke up, her brainwashed, person living with her. Jim Gaffigan from 2020, where he's like, Trump's a threat to democracy. He's sitting there and Joe Rogan's presenting good arguments like something hanky happened January 6th. The entire intelligence community hates Trump. They've done this. They've documented how they've done this in other countries. You're thinking they won't do that in America? Excuse me. And then we'll play Jim Gaffigan coming full round over on Rumble after the break.
And this is where we cut things off. Jason, I need to make a better video for our transition, but folks, you're going to see a little music playing, a little minute intro for our Rumble only segment. We hope you join us over there. Again, go to Rumble, download the app, and you can search for us at the American Tribune. We have got to get into the Al Smith dinner. Jim Gaffigan hosts, and Donald Trump brings down the house. You don't want to miss this.
Oh, my.